Bonjour à tous.
Hello, everyone.
J'espère que vous m'entendez tous.
I hope that everyone can hear me. My name is Nazumu, and I am the facilitator for the meeting today. It's a pleasure to welcome you online today for this workshop, Lessons and Perspectives from Water Security and Resilience Activities in the Sahel, especially au Niger. So can someone confirm to me that you can hear me clearly?
Oui, allô, monsieur Aya.
Yes, hello, we hear you.
Oui, vous m'entendez?
Great.
Oui, on vous entend bien à partir de
Yes,
Zander.
we can hear you from Zander.
Donc, si Zander m'entend, c'est que Washington
Wonderful.
m'entend également.
So can Washington hear me as well?
Ravi de vous accueillir
I hope so. Once
sur
again,
l'atelier.
very happy to welcome you to this
Organisé
workshop
par le programme
organized
RISE2 dans
by
le cadre de
RISE2
ses activités au Niger,
as
financées
part of
par
its activities
l'USAID,
in
à
Niger,
travers notamment
supported by
l'activité
USAID,
mais également par le
also the
projet ProWash
TerresEauVie
Sahel.
activity and the
Avec
ProWash
la
and Scale
participation des partenaires,
activity award.
notamment des activités de Save Children,
We
le projet
also have
Wadata,
support from
mais
Save the
également des
Children
activités
for the
de
Wadata project
CRS
and
à
CRS
travers le
as well
projet GIRMA
through the
et
GIRMA
sans doute
project
aussi le projet Hamzari.
and also other
Comme
projects
nous
as well.
l'avons dit dans le programme, cette
As
réunion va durer à peu
you
près
will
1
have seen
30
in the
et nous allons
agenda,
d'abord,
this
avant
will be a
d'attaquer
90-minute
le vif du sujet,
meeting, and so
retourner
we'll
un
get
peu
right
la
in
thématique.
to the
L'atelier va
content.
se dérouler en langue française,
The workshop will be held
mais il y a une
mostly in
traduction qui
French,
sera faite donc
but
en anglais.
interpretation is
Et pour
available into
avoir accès à la
English.
traduction en anglais,
In order to
passez,
access
comme la
interpretation,
diapositive le dit,
please follow the
voyez
instructions on the
l'icône
screen,
interprétation, vous cliquez
click on
là-dessus, vous allez avoir le
interpretation,
choix entre
and then
l'anglais et le
you'll be able to
français.
choose French or English.
Choisissez la langue que vous souhaitez
Please pick
écouter.
the language you would like to follow along in.
D'accord? Rapidement.
Is that all right
Vous
for
le
everyone?
voyez, j'imagine. Et ensuite,
I hope so. I think
vous
so.
avez également donc, le choix.
You can
Après, pour ce
also
qui concerne
choose
la projection, on
which
a deux écrans de projection,
language
un
version
en
of the
français et un
presentation
en anglais.
you will
Et
see,
donc, pour
either French or
choisir
English.
la
To choose the
projection que vous
presentation
souhaitez,
language
les diapositives la langue des diapositives, vous
for the
allez
slides,
en haut de votre écran
you will go to the top of your screen where you see view options.
Vous allez avoir
You'll
donc
click
le
on
choix
that,
entre
and then
deux
you will have the choice between two
présentations. Là,
shared
c'est écrit avec
screens.
des noms, mais chez vous, vous allez voir,
There are
vous avez
names on
le
the
choix
slide,
entre
but you should
anglais,
see
PS
English,
support,
EN,
et
PWS
français,
support, and
exclusif support
French,
également.
FR,
Vous
PWS
choisissez
support.
donc la langue de
So
la
please
présentation
pick
et vous aurez les diapositives de
the
la langue
presentation
que
language
vous
you would
souhaitez.
like to see the slides in.
Vous y êtes, j'imagine. Encore une fois, merci. Mon nom, c'est
So
Nazumu
thank you
Yahia.
once again.
Je
My
suis
name is
enseignant-chercheur
Nazumu
hydrogéologue de formation.
Yahia, and I
J'ai la lourde
am a
mission
professor,
de faire en sorte que cette réunion se passe de
and
manière la plus fluide possible.
it's my
Et
job to
aussi
make sure this meeting goes as
la
smoothly
manière la
as
plus
possible
productive.
as the moderator,
Pour
and to make sure we have a
d'abord,
productive
mesdames et
discussion.
messieurs,
To set the
je
scene a
voudrais
bit,
simplement vous rappeler
ladies
que
and
nous sommes
gentlemen,
déjà
I would
plus de
like to remind
25
you
millions
that
d'habitants
there are
dans
25
toute
million
l'Afrique
people living in
avec
Niger
un taux de
today,
croissance d'à peu près 3,7%
with a
de
3.7%
croissance de population, ce
population
qui
growth rate,
laisse présager un doublement de notre population à l'horizon 2050.
which is
25
an
millions
incredible
sur à
growth
peu
rate.
près 400 000 km². Je ne me suis pas trompé. 400 000 km² sur 267 000 km², c'est pour vous dire la
1,000 square
concentration large
kilometers.
pour
It's
la
a very
population
large
du
country,
Niger.
but most
Et
of the
toute
population
zone
is
recouverte
concentrated along the course of the Niger
aride
River
caractérisée par des températures
and in a
pouvant dépasser
semi-arid
50
area,
degrés.
the Sahel, which
Une
can get
forte
up to 50
variabilité
degrees
des
Celsius.
précipitations.
In
La
terms of
progression
rainfall,
du espace, mais aussi des impacts très importants de cette variabilité et du changement
it's highly
climatique sur les
variable,
moyens de
and climate
subsistance
change
des
is having
populations qui
a
font
significant impact on
l'exploitation donc de nos
the
ressources
population's
naturelles comme
ability
l'eau douce,
to feed
l'eau et les
itself,
terres.
and there are
De ce fait, donc, le
recurring
développement
problems
de
with
notre
water and
population
land.
dépend et dépendra davantage encore
The
de la
population
gestion de
will
nos ressources,
depend more and more on
et
a
particulièrement des ressources
proper
en eau. Le Niger
management
a
of
d'énormes
natural
ressources en eau
resources.
souterraine, mais celles-ci sont les plus
Niger has
limitées. Toutes
lots
ce
of
sont les eaux de surface
underground
à
water
travers les mares,
resources,
les
but
cours d'eau et les plans d'eau artificiels.
also surface
Le
water
Niger, c'est à
with
peu près 8 mares,
ponds
dont
and
175 permanentes, 120 retenues,
lakes and rivers. There are many permanent ponds and some that are artificial created by dams. There are many policies and strategies in place for the sustainable management of land and also of water, which is the focus of our program today. the strategies for an integrated management of water resources that take into account all environmental and human impacts. RISE 2 and the TerresEauVie activity are looking to build up communities' capacities and reinforce existing structures between basins and subbasins. There are tools for integrated water management developed in partnership with other USAID finance projects such as Warata, Hamzari, and Girma, as well as many other partners who are present in the area today. That is why we've organized this workshop with the goal of sharing experiences from the field for how surface waters are used and managed. That's what the TerresEauVie project has done with all of its partners. Secondly, we also would like to give participants the opportunity to ask questions and to share other approaches that you may have implemented yourselves or seen implemented in other projects. So those are our goals today. And before we begin, we will have a presentation and then a panel of 5 specialists who have all contributed to the activities we will be discussing. First, however, from TerresEauVie, you have Mr. Aluseni Isaka, who is the lead of the water security aspect of TerresEauVie, and who works with Winrock International, and will be giving most of the presentation today. He will also be backed up by Salih Bukhari, a regional coordinator in Zander for TerresEauVie, also working with Winrock. And then Mr. Kamisu Issa, a food security technical coordinator for the Girma RIFSA, organized with CRS, who will be speaking specifically about CRS-led activities. And then we have Mr. Sani Abu, who works with PAM and is their coordinator for these activities. And then we also have Mr. Hamidou Mara, who, rounding out this panel, who will talk to us about Warata's water services management approach and his point of view as well. Before all of that, ladies and gentlemen, please allow me to open the official part of this meeting with an opening remarks describing USAID's involvement in these activities. And we have Ms. Precious Sancho with us, who is a USAID WASH advisor. Ms. Sancho, I would like to give you the floor for your opening remarks before this workshop. Ms. Precious, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. And thank you for attending this important event on water resource assessment, management, and security in the Sahel. My name is Precious Sancho, and I am a water sanitation and hygiene advisor based in DC. This work is the outcome of BHA-funded collaboration in 2022 and 2023 between TerresEauVie, ProWash and Skill, and partners in Niger. Although Niger is a groundwater-rich country in the Sahel, the country is highly vulnerable to floods, droughts, and unpredictable rainfalls, as Professor Nazumu mentioned, which have been augmented by a changing climate. According to WFP July 2022 country brief, nearly 20% of the population are food insecure, and half of children under 5 have acute malnutrition. Therefore, the sharing of knowledge and information on local water resources is a vital part of strengthening multiple use water services for a vulnerable population. We know that information on groundwater resources is not always available to all stakeholders, especially those at the local level. Collaboration and communication are vital, and all voices must be heard. It is only through effective knowledge sharing that we will make progress on the road towards water security. As we begin to feel the effects of a changing climate, water security and governance are more important than ever. We all play a role in strengthening our ecosystem and progressing towards a more resilient and sustainable world. USAID is proud of its partnership and the efforts which we have made towards water security. As we continue to collaborate in Niger and the region, we look forward to a more prosperous, sustainable, and resilient water secure future. Thank you so much and enjoy this event.
Thank you, Ms. Precious, for
Thank you, Ms.
your
Precious,
observation.
for your
Merci.
remarks.
En tout cas, cela nous rappelle vraiment tout l'intérêt que l'USAID accorde à ces activités. Et
Thank
surtout,
you
nous
for
rassurer
sharing
la
everything that
contribution de
USAID has done
l'USAID à nos
involved with such
populations dans le cadre de
projects
renforcement de leur capacité.
to help build
Sans
up the
tarder,
capacities
nous
of the
allons donc
population of
passer à
Niger. Without
la
any further
présentation.
delay, we will go into the
Présentation qui durera
presentation,
20 minutes et qui
about a
sera
20-minute
assurée par
presentation
Monsieur Aluseni
from
Isaka,
Mr.
au nom
Aluseni
de l'ensemble
Isaka
de l'équipe, mais qui
on
pourra
behalf of the
participer
team.
au cours de l'exposé ou pendant la séance de questions-réponses.
And if you have any questions, he will be answering them along with the 4 other panelists who have all contributed to this work. Mr. Aluseni, you have the floor and you have 20 minutes. Thank you very much, Mr. Professor Nazumu. Hello to my fellow panelists and to the audience. I think, Suzanne, I'm seeing the slides in English. Can you bring me back to French?
Alors,
Yes, we're fixing that.
on vous entend en français.
Well, we hear you in French, Aluseni. You're on the French channel. No, it was the presentation that he was seeing in English. Okay, so we've heard the context, and I would like to now talk about, in a concrete and practical fashion, about what has been done, what has been implemented by our various partners, and also what our experiences has been with integration, layering, sequencing with USAID financed projects, especially in the region around Zander. How can we have a more focused management of ponds? Next slide, please. In terms of location, I should be clear. Our project covers has 3 partners: TerresEauVie for Niger, which is working in sub-basins around Tillabéri, another group around Maradi, and then Kurama for Zander. Kurama works around Zander. These areas, we have specific communes where we're working, and these communes are our entry point into the area. So we need to work with those communities. So Wadata, Girma, and Palm are all working with these local communities to do what they've been able to do. I would also like to note that water security is one of the central goals, central objectives of TerresEauvie's work. Water security plays such an important role. So does water availability, sustainable water access, and water quality. These are all important factors. And all of the partners I have mentioned are part of this initiative to try to make these resources more available and more profitable. All of these water resources, whether they are surface water or underground water, there's not a lot of information available, but in the Sahel, all these resources are important. They're all used in many ways. There are multiple usages, and we want to make sure they benefit everyone. Especially given the multiple usages to which they are subjected, and the different types of ponds that are present, whether they are permanent ponds, semi-permanent ponds, or ephemeral ones. There are about 1,000 ponds total, of which a few hundred are permanent. These ponds are used for irrigation, for fishing, and for other productive uses. And so we need to make sure that these surface water resources are used properly. What this will require integrated resource management, which is done at the local level. And that is that integrated management that has allowed local partners to become part of this localized communal initiative with the goal of helping local communes to make the best use of the resources for which they are responsible and which are available in their geographic area. Next slide, please. In terms of available ponds, here you can see some of the different ponds, different kinds of ponds. There are big ones and little ones. There are some that are in a chain or in a line. And based on the pond type, we've done different kinds of work. Near Bande, it's Girma and Pan, and near Gushi, it's TerresEauVie, Girma and Pam. And then near Gidigir, it's Gidigir Gijimuni, TerresEauVie, Fam, and Warata, who are all present. So we've been able to do a lot of activities together to rehabilitate these ponds. Next slide, please. Here we're focusing on a few ponds in particular. In Gidimuni, the Lake of Gidimuni, which is in the rural commune of Gidimuni. And there's also the Karanmasu Pond in the southeast of Gidimuni, as well as Moni Pond, which is near Gushi. All of these ponds, all of the partners got together to implement activities, complementary activities around these ponds. And these activities were sequenced and layered. And they were the ones that made the most sense for these communes in particular. One example of a Girma intervention, as I said, we have a Girma, TerresEauVie, and PAM in a given area. They were fighting against Tifa australis by creating corridors for grazing animals to pass through. They have also constructed infrastructure for better access to underground water resources. Sequencing and layering was done between Warata and TerresEauVie in creating local agreements to cover fishing, animal husbandry, and market gardening, so that all of these activities could take place together in a sequenced fashion around these ponds and protecting and making the best use of these ponds. TerresEauVie has also put in place other activities that support other partners and their activities as well. Next slide, please. Collaboration. Why and how? Why and how? Why is collaboration important, and how do you make it happen? We all know that collaboration is an important part of USAID's focus and guidelines since the project began in 2019. USAID has given a clear viewpoint about how collaboration should happen and what kind of collaboration is expected as part of activities. Now, it's become almost a reflex for all projects financed by USAID. We have regular planning sessions and updates, and we plan activities with an idea about how responsibility will be divided And so that in the communes where we're working, when it comes to managing water resources, all of the activities that are being done are complementary, sequenced, layered, and that there is proper collaboration so that everyone can fulfill the responsibilities of their role, and so that we can help these communes take on their own responsibilities for managing their own resources. There are many actors, many partners who have been involved. Here we're talking mostly about TerresEauVie, Germa, Wadata, and PAM. And so collaboration was essential, and it worked quite well. We were able to adapt our management of different areas and how different partners worked together. We were able to coordinate our work and make sure that different usages and usage groups were all able to come together, meet each other, and express their needs, as well as water institutions, sustainable land management institutions. Collaboration allowed everyone to come together and to work together in harmony and with a good relationship. Next slide, please. I've already mentioned these partners that you see on the screen now. And then at each commune level, there were all of these institutions getting involved, and we were able to group them and sequence their interventions, as well as layer them. To take the example of Wadata, Germa, and the World Food Programme, they focused on farming, agriculture, gardening, animal husbandry, fishing, and so they focused on that, of course, with support from TerresEauVie, which was focused on land security and creating local agreements, signing local agreements. So there were also department level and commune level land registry administrators and other state representatives, and everyone came together to collaborate so that we could implement our activities. And when it comes to sustainability, by having all these combinations of partners and by involving all of these institutions, we made sure that all of these partners could be proud of what they were doing and could be sure that they were leaving something that would last into the future. Next slide, please. In terms of the different types of ponds that we work with, there are some of them that are temporary or seasonal, others that are permanent or semi-permanent. And in terms of surface area, we were able to work on, divide them into large ponds and small ponds between 0.8 and 2 hectares. And we worked with partners to identify large ponds such as Gimuni and Muni, and it was around these big ponds that activities were held with taking environmental factors and other factors into account. Next slide, please. In terms of concerted and inclusive management around large ponds, as I said, there were several forms, usages that were competing. There are competing usages relying on these ponds. So the partners came together, and in Gidimuni, for example, we worked on the relationship between different users of these natural resources, and we were able to have them come together and discuss their issues. We also worked on conflict management around pond usage, especially between farmers and herdsmen. The Muni pond is subject to multiple uses, and so we tried to manage those. Next slide, please. When it comes to the main tools we used, the interpreter is sorry, it seems the connection is cut. Interpretation will resume when we get the connection back. Thank you.
Rebonjour à tous. Je pense que nous avons un petit souci au niveau de la connectivité.
Hello, everyone. I think we're having a
Je
bit
me
of a problem with the
demande,
connection.
Aluseni,
I'm wondering, Aluseni,
si
can
vous
you,
êtes toujours connecté, on va
are you still
réessayer
connected?
et
We can
reprendre.
try again.
Aluseni, est-ce que vous pouvez nous entendre?
Aluseni, can you hear us?
Oui, on vous entend.
Ah, vous êtes de retour.
Yes, I hear you. Oh,
Ça
there you
a
are.
coupé.
Oh, sorry, you cut
Je
out there.
vous invite à reprendre au
So
niveau des
you can
principaux
start
outils
again
utilisés. Ça a
from the main
coupé,
tools that
vraiment
you
au début
used.
de cette slide.
Oh, you got cut off at the beginning of that slide. All right.
Alors, je disais par rapport à
I was saying,
utiliser,
in terms of the main tools that we used,
façon collégiale avec les autres partenaires,
we worked in a friendly manner with other partners to put local agreements into local conventions into place. And that was done with GIRMA, Wadata, and the World Food Program, so that and we had a guide to orient our activities. So you had a stakeholder and partners to make sure that water resource users would be the ones deciding themselves how the resources would be managed to ensure an equal use, equal access to these resources. And with the activities that we did, especially in terms of securing land rights and flagging sites, we were able to balance out different usage groups so that they could all have access to these resources. The PAG, the Development and Management Plan, is based on local conventions. And there's also a land rights use schema. And these plans helped orient the whole process, again, with support from partners in the field. Next slide, please. As I was saying, we have examples of PAGs, of development and management plans, which are put into place between partners, allowing them to take action to prevent aquifer pollution, especially from fertilizers. GIRMA, Wadata are working with farmers, and so they brought recommendations to them to try to reduce fertilizer pollution from farms and to help them work on composting. We also worked on ponds that were filling in and dredge them, which helps make local agricultural production more sustainable. In Karamasu, there are corridors that animals use to get to the pond. And that is something that has often caused conflict in the past. So TerresEauVie flagged out specific corridors, and Girma did education around them. They also helped them with small-scale irrigation projects and rice growing. Tifa australis is an invasive species that we've also been trying to fight against. Girma worked on that specifically. Next slide, please. In terms of some quantified achievements, you have the Muni Pond, and there are 212 people who received awareness raising information about the best use of fertilizers and on how to do composting, which is a kind of organic fertilizer. There was also 15 kilometers of livestock corridors that were flagged, that were marked off. TerresEauVie started this marking off, but Girma and Warata helped out and made sure the project was completed based on each partner's capacity. There were over 1,500 hectares marked off along the Fagé rest area and around the Karamasu pond. And I have to specify that all of these water resources need to be secured with land rights, and in the rural law code, it was by working on land rights that we were able to set aside a corridor to flag in the first place. Next slide, please. Here we're looking at the Gidi Muni. There were 45 women who received training on composting, and this activity eventually becomes profitable. If they make enough compost, they can sell it to other people as a fertilizer. There was also here again work on livestock corridors, on there was also land deeds were established, fish production was increased, and all of this was thanks to complementary work between the partners. Next slide, please. In terms of the development of medium-sized ponds, this was an area where PAM took the lead, and this focused on market gardening fields and rice fields, and they wanted to make sure that there were low salt levels and enough water available for irrigation. Next slide, please. In terms of methods for developing these sites, there was reed and brush cutting that took place. That was a big focus. Not only does brush cutting produce resources that can be used, but it also makes fish stocking possible in newly cleared ponds, and land that's cleared can also be used for growing rice and other vegetables. Next slide, please. Another few quantified achievements. There were surface water put aside for watering animals and other uses, 204 hectares. There were 19 ponds stocked with fish,
52 hectares empoisonnés,
which is more than 52 hectares of surface. 187 hectares of pond was set aside for rice cultivation, and 288 hectares for market gardening. So this area around the ponds was recovered by PAM, and the land was developed for market gardening and rice growing, either by Wadata or Girma, or with support from TerresEauVie. Next slide, please. In Gidimuni, we had a few personal statements from women in Gidimuni who benefited from the interventions, collaborative interventions involving several partners. These fields were recovered either from invasive TIFA or through land recovery or through establishing land deeds, which allowed these women to become producers, farmers in the market gardens that were able to be opened up. In the second case, you also have another woman saying how much she's benefited from the efforts of the partners. Next slide, please. Oh, it's not moving on my end. Okay, lessons learned. In terms of lessons learned, the partners all learned to take climate change into account. Climate variability is a big issue, especially for these ponds. In Karamasu, we observed a drying out of the pond based on changing climatic conditions. We also did mapping. Our colleagues from SEEK did made maps that allowed us to better understand actual and potential uses of these ponds. We were able to take the maps to our partners and decide what we were going to do, where and how around these ponds. These maps were an easy way to visualize to help local leaders visualize the projects and the changes. All of the local convention groups and village development committees, water management committees, all of these groups worked with partners. The partners coordinated their work, brought them together to make sure that everyone's actions were complementary to other people's actions to guarantee the greatest benefit for the population as a whole. For all users, local conventions and development and management plans were important documents that were used over and over by the population. This also helped us to model different collaboration approaches. Each partner had their own procedures, their own way of doing things, but everyone was also able to come together to decide on how they would act together in these communes so that the local people could benefit as much as possible. Next slide, please. Here we are. So in conclusion, the work done by all of these partners has allowed us to better understand the ponds, their importance, and how they can be used to improve the lives of local people, local households, through market gardening, rice growing, fishing. Really, a healthy pond can change the local economy. These ponds are quite productive. So if we continue in the same vein with the same partners or with other partners, we hope that we will be able to establish food security based on proper use of these ponds. knowledge is also incredibly important, and we need to get more people involved and have inclusive, sustainable management of surface water resources. That is the best way to improve the lives of rural people. All of these ponds are subject to multiple uses and are of different sizes, but by bringing many partners together to work on them as a system, we were able to have a better impact. Local actors, users, partners, everyone collaborated to make sure that all of the plans were doable, and everyone pooled technical and financial resources to do what we've done. And of course, there are things we could have improved, but we think that in our experience, what we did worked, and we have shown that this is possible. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Aluseni, for your presentation. And so thank you. Thank you for your presentation. We may have gone a bit over the planned time, but you really have so much interesting information to share. So it's okay that we went a bit over. So, as I said, this presentation was done on behalf of a panel of 5 people. We have the other 4 panelists here with us, and I'd like to give them the floor to add what they would like to add during the next section of the workshop, the question and answer section. So we have people from TerresEauVie, Girma, Warata, and from USAID, Winrock, and other financing bodies, and of course, the World Food Programme. So I think we'll move right on to the question and answer section, and the other panelists will jump in where and when they would like to answer questions and to fill out what Aluseni has already shared with us. Yes, ponds are very, very important for socioeconomic development in these local communities and in this region around Zander. I will remind you that this region has the greatest number of ponds in Niger, with around 300 in total. That is why this area was chosen for the focus of this project. In terms of what was done on the ground, many local and communal structures were strengthened through things like the development and management plans and the local conventions. And along with training, and other activities like marking out livestock corridors. All of this has helped to make sure that ponds are used better and that they can be used for more usages such as watering livestock, stocking fish, etc. I have one possibility for synergy I would like to point out, something that merits more discussion. And we have to bear that in mind. We should always be trying to expand our impact, expand collaboration with more and more partners to secure more means and increase our impact. So now we'll go into the question and answer section. The organizers are putting some questions together and we'll ask the panelists to respond to them. So I'm looking to see if we have any hands raised. So you can raise your hand, or Oh, I see, Eric, you have your hand raised. Eric, we can start with you. Go ahead.
Oui, merci. Vous m'entendez?
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me? Yes, I hear you.
D'accord, merci Monsieur Nazoumou, merci
Great.
Monsieur Aluseni
Thank you, Mr. Nazumu and
pour
Mr.
cette
Aluseni,
présentation vraiment intéressante.
for this very interesting
Qui
presentation.
montre qu'il y a, si c'était encore nécessaire, vraiment beaucoup de choses à faire dans le domaine de la
Yes, there's a
gestion
lot that needs to be
des eaux de
done
mar
in terms of
et
pond
notamment
management
en ce qui concerne les politiques publiques.
and in
J'avais
terms
juste
of
deux
better public
petits
policies.
commentaires ou questions.
I have
Le
two
premier,
little
c'était,
questions to get us
est-ce
started.
que,
The
alors c'est
first,
peut-être un peu précis, mais
maybe
je
this is a
pense que
little
c'est important.
specific, but I
Est-ce
think it's
que
important to ask.
dans l'évaluation de
In
ce que rapportent les mares dans
your
l'économie locale,
evaluation of the
vous
pond's
avez pu
contributions to
évaluer
local
ce que ça
economies,
apportait au niveau de l'usage pastoral? Je sais que c'est pas très facile, mais
I know that it's hard
il me
to
semble que c'est
measure
important,
pastoral
puisque
uses, like uses
effectivement
for animal
les
husbandry.
troupeaux qui s'abreuvent aux mares à certaines saisons est vraiment
You know, there
difficile.
are groups of
Ma
animals,
deuxième question,
herds that
c'était
come down to drink only
aussi
during certain
comment vous
seasons. So
faites
how did you do
pour
that?
intégrer
Second
donc,
question,
ces pasteurs qui sont mobiles
again,
dans les
pastoralists are highly
concertations,
mobile.
étant
So
donné
how did
que
you,
leur
how were
présence
you
n'est
able
pas
to
toujours,
work with them?
ça dépend vraiment des saisons. Donc même
Since it
même
really
s'ils sont
depends on the
intégrés dans
season,
les
whether they
conventions
will
foncières,
be
comment est-ce que vous faites pour
there
vous
or
assurer qu'ils
not.
soient
So
bien
how do you
intégrés
get them
dans les
involved in
discussions?
things like
Voilà,
securing
merci
land deeds when they're so
pour cette
mobile?
présentation encore
Thank you again for your
et à
presentation,
bientôt.
and I look forward to your
Merci
answers.
beaucoup, Eric, pour
Yes,
cette
thank you, Eric,
deux questions
for
pertinentes.
your two highly relevant
Je ne vois
questions.
pas de main levée.
I
Voilà,
don't see any
Bukari,
hands raised. Bukari, go ahead.
Voilà.
Bonsoir.
Yes, hello, good afternoon.
Merci beaucoup, Ouseni, pour vraiment
Thank
la
you,
présentation.
Aluseni, for your
J'ai
presentation.
juste une question
I have a
pour parler
question.
plus de la collaboration entre les
You
partenaires
spoke
et
a
les
lot about
partenaires USAID.
collaboration between the
Quel
partners,
type votre
but
collaboration avec les services techniques?
how did you collaborate with
Quel
technical
type de
services?
collaboration vous
What
avez
kinds
pu
of
avoir technique
collaboration
avec eux,
were there
les
with
services techniques? Est-ce que ça a
technical
été facile,
services?
difficile?
And was it easy? Was it difficult?
Voilà, je sais qu'avec les partenaires
I know
régionaux,
that
c'est les mêmes projets,
with
programmes.
partners, okay,
Quel
great,
était
you're
vraiment
similar
le niveau de
projects, similar
collaboration dans la
programs,
mise en œuvre de vos
but how
activités
did you
avec les
involve
services?
technical services
Et
in the
donc,
implementation of
seconde
your
question
activities?
serait
And a second
la
question,
seconde.
if I may,
Est-ce que les bénéficiaires
did the
de
beneficiaries
vos activités, comment ils vous voient?
of your
Ils vous voient en
activities,
tant qu'un seul programme projet ou bien en tant que TerresEauVie, PAM et autre chose?
how did they see and how did they receive your
Merci, Monsieur Bukari, pour cette
interventions?
question.
Thank you, Mr. Bukari,
On
for your
passe
question.
à Eric Revient,
And then,
ou c'est une
Eric, do you have
ancienne main
another
qui est levée?
question, or it's the same hand raised?
Ok, Yunfa.
All right, Yunfa, or
Monsieur
Yunfa,
alors.
Mr. Yunfa, you have a question?
Monsieur Yunfa Alassane.
Yunfa Alassane?
Si Monsieur Yunfa,
Mr. Yunfa,
votre
we
micro est
cannot
bien
hear
activé,
you.
on
Is
vous
your
entend
mic
pas.
on? We're not hearing
Sinon, on
anything.
passe à Monsieur Hamadou.
Well, let's move on to Mr. Hamadou
Pour
Hama
qu'on puisse entendre Monsieur Yunfa. Monsieur
while
Hamadou.
Mr. Yunfa tries to get connected. Hamadou?
Merci bien.
Yes, thank
Répondre
you.
à la suite de la question de Saluki, justement,
To follow up
de la
on
collaboration avec les services techniques,
another
et quel est le
question,
mécanisme
on
que
the
vous avez
question
mis en
on
place pour
technical
permettre justement
services,
aux services techniques et communautaires et
how did
communaux
you
de
coordinate
pouvoir
between
poursuivre
communities and technical
cette
services
action-là à la fin du projet?
to make
Merci.
sure these services would continue after the end of your
Merci,
project?
Monsieur
Thank you.
Hamadou.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Hamadou.
Yunfa qui a désactivé son
Mr.
micro, vous
Yunfa, is your microphone working
Oui, je
now?
vous entends. Vous me recevez, vous?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
S'il vous plaît, vous pouvez poser
Yes,
votre
yes, go
question.
ahead. What was your question?
Oui, vous me recevez?
Yes,
Oui,
you can hear me?
vous reçoit-
Yes, yes.
vous reçoit bien.
Ok. Bon, c'est par rapport à...
I had a question about
Bon, les mares, oui, elles sont multi-usages, c'est clair. Au niveau des différents usages, là,
the
je n'ai
different
pas vu
usages you were
trop
talking about.
développer la typologie de conflit.
Could you talk about some of
vers
these
ces
different usage
multi-usages.
types
Parce qu'on sait que généralement,
that you
il y
came
a des gens
across?
agricoles, pastorales,
In
piscicoles.
general, okay,
j'ai
you
pas
have
vu,
pastoralists, you have farmers,
les mécanismes de gestion de ces
but I'd
conflits
like to
autour
hear
de
more
ces
about the
usages.
mechanisms
J'ai
for
pas vu ça trop
balancing
développé
out these different usages
la présentation. C'est sûr,
between these
on a
groups.
parlé de conventions locales comme étant un des outils de gestion de conflits, mais on n'a pas
You talked a bit
trop
about
sorti de
conflict
comment ça se
management
passe,
tools, but I wonder if you could go a little bit further.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you for your
On passe à
question.
Monsieur Florent, s'il vous plaît.
Mr. Florent,
Bonjour, merci beaucoup pour
hello.
la présentation.
Thank you for your
J'aurais des
presentation.
questions qui
I have a question that goes along with some of the others. What were your processes for ensuring that the usage rules put into place were respected? I'm thinking about the use of phytosanitary products, which are used often in market gardening, but can be problematic for pastoralists. Also, and how did you set boundaries between different spaces for pastoralists, for example, and how did you make sure that they were respected? Were there committees that were created? How did you ensure that these rules were followed? Thank you. Thank you, Florent, for your question. I don't see any other hands raised. Once Florent put his hands down, I just want to check, are there any other questions? No? If no, I think we can hand the floor over to our panelists so that they can answer some of the questions we've already received. And we can ask them some more if there are any more and if time allows. So the first question was for Pam. And it was Eric's question. On pastoral pond usage by pastoralists.
Vous avez bien évalué la contribution, donc, n'est-ce pas, des mares à l'usage, n'est-ce pas, pastoral. En quoi est-ce qu'ils peuvent contribuer de manière conséquente et peut-être sans doute en fonction de vos données.
Maybe you have data to back up how pastoralists were using these ponds and how that changed. I think.
Est-ce que vous nous entendez, Monsieur Abou?
Maybe for Mr. Abou. Oh no, he's not here. He lost his connection. Oh, okay. So I think that we're having some connection issues with the WFP. So is there someone else who might like to answer this question? Yes, yes.
Donc, par rapport à cette question,
while my colleague connects, when it comes to ponds' contribution to animal husbandry,
au niveau des mares, il y a eu aussi élaboration de conventions locales de gestion des mares.
Ponds, we put local conventions in place for pond management. So, and there were also the development and management plans. Both of these tools were created in consultation with all pond users, farmers, herdsmen, fishermen. Everyone was involved in the creation of these tools and in their implementation. This made it possible to have a very clear idea of what problems existed around which ponds. One of the initial problems was getting everyone to agree on what the pond was used for and how much it could be used. So that was the first step, was getting agreement around that. And then we worked on access. Some corridors were put into place and marked out in collaboration with everyone involved to allow pastoralists to access ponds. And there are laws on the books that say protect ponds for agricultural uses. So we worked on getting everyone to come together, to come to an agreement that everyone could respect, that would allow animals access to water while protecting local farms. So that's what we did. And then to answer Bukhari's question, how did we involve pastoralists who are highly mobile. Oh no, I think that was Eric's question, but go ahead. Well, we already have a law that involves pastoralists in agreements around water. And we identified two kinds of pastoralists, sedentary ones that do not move, and those that practice transhumance, mobile ones, who move their herds across the landscape throughout the season. So when we created pond management structures, we took that into account. We made sure that the sedentary pastoralists were represented and that the mobile ones as well were represented. The sedentary ones, they have their own ways of communicating. And even when pastoralists move across the landscape, they have local contacts that they talk with to communicate their needs. So they have their own ways of communicating and of spreading information. So that's how information spread. So, and that's how I would answer the two questions that were asked. Thank you. Great. And since you have the floor, maybe you could answer the question about collaboration with technical services. Could you go ahead and talk about that?
Okay, bonsoir.
Yes, hello, good afternoon.
Monsieur Haya, donc, pour ce qui est de la collaboration avec les services
In
techniques,
terms of working with
et
technical
au niveau
services,
des activités du programme Wadata, en fait,
with
pour tout ce
Wadata,
qui est activités de mise en place des
for
comités de gestion de mare,
pond
identification,
management
et
activities,
formation.
identification, training,
Les espèces qu'on doit empoisonner ont été,
even
en tout cas,
fish stocking,
chargées, ont été,
all of that
la direction de
was subject
la direction régionale de l'environnement
to
a
discussion
été
coordination with
vraiment
the
dans
regional
ces activités de mise
environmental
en œuvre
protection body,
autour de ces mares-là. Donc,
who
pour
is
ceux
responsible
qui
for
vraiment
protecting
doivent, je
ponds
pense que comme les autres,
from an environmental standpoint.
la collaboration elle est
So,
bonne.
and the collaboration was good.
Parce que tout ce qu'on fait comme activité, ils sont vraiment associés
All of
dans
our
cette démarche.
activities
Voilà ce que je voulais ajouter par rapport
worked well with the
à-
initiatives of this environmental
ceux qui
board.
doivent
And so the collaboration went
Merci,
quite well
Monsieur
since
Mara.
we shared
Et
common
pour
goals.
répondre, y a-t-il des
Thank you.
difficultés quelque part pour certains
But I'm wondering if someone can talk to us about any difficulties that may have arisen or and how those difficulties were resolved. That is often an issue in working with technical services. So do we have a panelist who would like to talk about that?
Oui, par rapport à la collaboration, c'est Kamisu.
Yes, here, this is Kamisu. Yes, go ahead, Kamisu.
Donc, ce que je pourrais ajouter,
All I would have to add
dans le cadre de collaboration avec les services techniques
on
déconcentrés de l'État,
the issue of collaboration with state and technical
il y
services
avait donc, en tout cas, déjà l'un des partenaires,
is
comme
that
a déjà été, avec les services techniques, notamment en signé de
partners often worked with
accompagnement des suivis
technical services
de nos activités autour de Marla. Je pense que
to support activities around the ponds.
conventions annuelles avec les services techniques,
We had annual agreements that we signed with technical services
implication
that gave a framework to their involvement
l'accompagnement des activités techniquement,
and
donc,
the technical support that they would offer to our activities
sur le terrain concrètement.
concretely in the field.
Bon, c'est vrai, donc, dans toute collaboration,
So
pas manquer quelques défis.
the collaboration went well. We did observe
c'est que, en fait, eux, ils sont beaucoup plus, ils sont sollicités, ils sont occupés souvent.
that these technical services, there are a lot of people asking for their support. They're very busy. They don't have the capacity to offer sufficient support in the field. And here I'm talking about state bodies, technical services. So we need to work on strengthening these technical services and giving them a better capacity to offer support in the field. I would also like to add a few thoughts in response to the question of how beneficiaries see these projects and have they internalized the concepts we are trying to share about communal work and communal management of these ponds. I think that there are some beneficiaries who have really become our partners. They've really understood what we're trying to do. They share our vision. And they see all of the different actors who are there trying to help improve these ponds, and they appreciate that. So that is a strength in the Girma area. Everywhere we go, it's such a benefit that we have a shared vision.
Je pense que ça, c'est un témoignage vraiment à saluer que nous avons accompli ensemble dans notre démarche, dans notre communication.
That's thanks to a lot of work we did on communication. We might have been able to reach all of our goals individually, but by working together and by everyone, doing their proportional part, we were able to go much further. I believe there was that Amadou, who asked another question about what mechanisms are in place to ensure that services extend beyond the end of the project. Yes. Everything that we're doing hand in hand with the technical services, with local municipalities and with beneficiaries. One of our project goals was to not just disappear at the end of our time period, but to hopefully influence national strategy and regional strategy for water management. And also to work with community development programs and other communities-based structures, because some communities already have their own action plans in place. So everything that we're doing, we're trying to do it with local partners, government partners, with the goal of having these services continue. And again, it's easy when we all share the same goal.
Ils sont là déjà, ils sont au devant de tout ce que nous entamons, donc ils vont assurer en tout cas la durabilité.
And everything we've done, people have continued to do so far. So we believe it will be sustainable. Also, every month we have a big meeting with all of the local development actors. And we discuss our ongoing activities each month. This helps us be sure that that people will continue with the efforts we have already started ourselves. And I leave it to my colleagues if they have anything to add to what I've said or would like to further answer the other questions. Thank you. Yes, I would like to answer a question I heard about different conflict types that we've come across. We have taken action, mostly focusing on preventative action. The interpreter, sorry, the connection seems to have cut.
N'est pas off.
Je pense que nous
a-
avons perdu pendant un petit
I
moment
think that we may have
la
lost
salle.
our connection.
On est là, on est revenu.
Oh no, we're here, we're here.
On a été déconnecté avec les
Ah,
collègues.
we got disconnected with.
On vous revoit, thanks to Skype.
Maybe we
Je pense
can
qu'on a perdu, un
pick back
petit
up
peu,
where we were. Suzanne,
tout à l'heure, donc le chèque a mis tout. Et on était juste au niveau où il disait que les autres intervenants aussi peuvent venir sur le
Yes.
mécanisme donc, de poursuite des
I
activités.
wanted
On a
to ask the other
suffisamment compris, on
panelists
va pas le reprendre.
about mechanisms. We already heard a bit about mechanisms for sustainability.
Il y a une question sur la
There was also a question about what types of conflicts were observed. And that was the question from Mr. Yunfa. So maybe can one of the panelists answer this question about what types of conflicts were observed and how they were resolved? Can you hear me?
On vous entend bien.
Yes, I can hear you
Niamey, mais je crois
in
que le
Niamey,
reste des panélistes
but I
s'est
think that
déconnecté,
all of the other
malheureusement.
panelists lost their connection,
Je ne sais pas
unfortunately.
si,
I don't know. Oh, Aluseni, are you still with us? Can you maybe talk to us a bit about different types of conflicts that were observed and the conflict management tools that were used? Saleh would be better to answer that one than me.
Malheureusement, il semblerait que nous avons des petits problèmes de
So,
connexion.
unfortunately, it seems
Le
like we're having
professeur Nazumu
connection
s'est
issues.
déconnecté également.
Professor
Si vous
Nazumu
pouvez, si vous nous
also
entendez à
lost his
nouveau.
connection. So I don't know if he is able to reconnect or if he can hear me. Let me know.
Ok, il semblerait effectivement qu'on ait des petits soucis au niveau de
It
la
seems that we're
connexion.
really having some connection
Je vous
issues.
demande de patienter quelques instants.
I would just ask everyone
manière à
to
voir
be
s'ils peuvent se
patient for a few moments
reconnecter.
just to see if
On
the
présente nos
panelists are able
excuses
to
pour ces désagréments.
reconnect. Excuse us for these issues.
Est-ce que vous nous recevez?
Can you hear me?
On vous reçoit, oui.
Yes, I can hear you, Abdel Nasser.
Oui, est-ce que M. Saleh est en ligne?
And is Saleh online?
Monsieur Saleh?
Mr. Saleh?
Est-ce que vous nous entendez?
Can you hear us?
Suzanne, vous nous entendez là?
Suzanne, can you hear us?
Oui, on vous entend.
Yes, I can hear you.
Voilà, on aurait aimé que M. Saleh
Well,
de Winrock puisse
it would have been nice to have Mr.
Saleh
Saleh answer Yunfa's question about what types of conflicts were observed and what mechanisms were used to manage them, but I don't think that he's online. He's in Zander.
Monsieur Saleh, vous nous entendez?
Mr. Saleh, can you hear us?
Je ne pense pas
Apparently
que Monsieur
not.
Saleh soit en
No,
ligne.
I
Peut-être
don't
que
think that he's
nous
connected.
l'avons, perdu
I
au niveau
think
de la
that we may have
connectivité.
lost him due to the connection issues we've been having. All right. Well, we're trying to get him on the phone. And hopefully he'll be able to answer the question maybe through the phone.
Je pense qu'on avait fait un tour donc
But I believe we've gone through most of the questions, but there was also the question from Florent about making sure that usage agreements were respected.
Nazumu, est-ce que vous nous entendez?
Nazumu, can you hear us?
On est là.
Vous
Yes,
êtes de
here we
retour.
are. Yes.
C'est eux qui te mutent. Ah, c'est eux qui vont muter ce soir.
Allô, vous nous entendez?
Oui, on vous reçoit.
Hello, can you hear us? Yes, we can hear you.
Allô?
Malheureusement, il semblerait que les problèmes de
I'm
connexion
sorry, I
persistent.
think that we're continuing to
Je
have
vois
connection
que
issues.
nous avons un intervenant,
I see that
Abdul-Majid Ilyassou.
we have
Vous êtes,
two
on vous
Abdul
entend
Majid
bien. Est-ce qu'il
Ilyassou. We
s'agit
can
de la
hear
salle
you,
avec les
but are
présentateurs
you
qui
in the
sont
room
ensemble?
with the presenters?
Allez-y, on vous
Yes,
entend
okay.
maintenant.
Go ahead. We can hear you just fine now. All right. This one is
On a-
working.
on a-
Use this one.
on a 4 machines sur lesquelles on navigue, mais
We
ça
have
ne
4
marche
different
pas, je sais pas.
computers that we're trying to log in with. Sorry.
Donc, je disais qu'il y avait une
So,
question de Florent
I was
relative
saying
au respect justement
there
des
was a
usages, au
question from
respect des
Florent
règles
about
et des délibérations qui ont été
how to make sure
élaborées
usage
par
rules were
Est-ce
respected.
que,
So,
un des panélistes
could one of the
pourrait nous
panelists
expliquer,
perhaps
répondre à cette question?
answer this
Hussein
question?
a suggéré.
Hussein
Kamissou, vous êtes
suggested,
encore là?
or Kamisu, are you here with us? Kamisu, are you here?
Non, maintenant c'est bon.
No, now it's good.
C'est par rapport à
Mais
Saleh.
Saleh,
How
voilà,
about
Saleh,
Saleh?
si vous pouvez répondre à
Okay,
la
Saleh,
question
please go ahead and answer the
au
question
respect,
about
des
ensuring
délibérations, des usages justement des
usage agreements
pesticides.
are
Mais il y avait
respected,
aussi une question relative donc à
and
la
also the
typologie
question about what types of
des
conflicts were
conflits et les
observed
mécanismes
and
de
what
gestion.
mechanisms were
Si vous
used to
pouvez nous
manage
y
them.
répondre.
Go
D'accord.
ahead. Yes,
Donc,
thank
je vais
you.
commencer par les typologies de
I'll
conflits.
start with the question about
Donc,
conflicts.
dès le début du projet, il y a
Since
eu
the
des
beginning of the
formations sur
project,
la gestion des
we've been
conflits,
giving conflict management
notamment les
trainings,
structures communautaires comme les groupements
especially with
chargés de
community
jouer
structures
un rôle avec la chefferie
that
traditionnelle.
are involved with local
Après
traditional
des
chiefs and leadership
formations, il y a
structures.
eu l'élaboration des conventions locales.
When
Et
we
dans les
created
conventions
local
locales, on a
conventions
profité pour
and signed them with local
puisque dans les
communities,
conventions locales, il y a effectivement
we included in these
des règles
conventions
qui sont arrêtées et au cas où
rules
quelqu'un enfreint aux règles,
that are
doit être
written down
amendé.
specifically,
Donc, il y
and
a dans le comité de
procedures
gestion des
for
conflits
finding
locaux
people who
quelqu'un
don't
qui est
follow
chargé
the
de faire
rules.
le suivi
So
de respect des règles et
it's
au
these
cas où
local
les règles ne
groups
sont
that
pas
are
respectées,
making sure the rules are
que
followed
les contravenants soient amendés.
and that
Donc,
are in
le
charge of
genre
any
de type de
fines.
conflit qu'on a constaté, il y a
In terms of the type
des
of conflicts
conflits
we've observed,
agriculteurs-éleveurs,
of course, we've had
il y a des
farmer
conflits
pastoralist conflicts, as well
agriculteurs-agriculteurs,
as farmer-farmer conflicts,
conflits éleveurs-pêcheurs,
and pastoralist fishermen conflicts.
Comment on appelle ceux qui font les carrières, là, qui font les briques.
And then also conflicts between farmers and brick makers.
Donc, c'est ça les types de conflits qu'on
So
a
those are the conflicts
identifiés.
that
Et
we
pour
identified.
chaque type de conflit,
And for
des
each type,
dispositions ont été prises dans le cadre des conventions locales.
we tried to
Et pour
include
que, en
management
cas
tools in the local
dans cas
conventions.
de problème que on puisse, le comité de gestion de la convention locale puisse intervenir.
Each local convention has a management committee
Dans beaucoup de cas, l'accent a
that
été
we
mis
try to put in charge of
sur
resolving
la
these conflicts.
prévention des conflits.
These,
Que
or
ce soit
moreover, or mostly to prevent
notamment
them.
en ce qui concerne les conflits
For
agricoles et
example,
éleveurs,
for
c'est
the
le
farmer
respect
pastoralist conflicts,
principalement des statuts
they
des
mostly
ressources naturelles,
turn around natural
notamment
resource
les aires de
usage,
pâturage,
especially
les couloirs de passage,
pastures,
les mares.
transit
Donc,
corridors,
il y a eu
and
beaucoup
ponds.
de séances de sensibilisation des
So we
différents
had
acteurs
a
autour
lot
de
of
ces
awareness
questions-là
raising
pour
sessions with
prévenir les
different
conflits en respectant les
groups
statuts des différentes ressources naturelles.
about
Donc, on a beaucoup mis
respecting
l'accent sur
different
ce
natural
thème-là.
resource uses. So that's
Et
what we did on that.
par rapport aux
And then
engrais, les
in terms
impacts
of
des engrais,
fertilizers and the impact of
donc il y
fertilizers,
a eu plusieurs séances de
we
sensibilisation qui
had
ont
several
été
awareness raising
menées dans
sessions
les différents villages, par les
in
structures
across
communautaires
different
et par
villages and through
les
community
conventions locales
structures and local
pour
conventions
prévenir les
to
impacts.
try to
Et dans les
avoid
séances de
the negative
sensibilisation, on dit, bon
impact
voilà, quand
of
vous ne
fertilizers.
respectez pas les doses ou les types
You
d'engrais
know, we would say to them,
recommandés,
okay,
voilà
if
ce
you're
qui
not going to
peut
follow
se
the
passer.
right dosage amount
Et
or
que
the
tout
instructions on the
ce
fertilizer,
puissant
here are the
cadre
problems that
va
will
se
cause.
retrouver dans l'eau, que ce soit
All
l'eau
of
de
that fertilizer
surface
will wind up
ou
in the
l'eau
water,
de la nappe. Et quand
in
vous
the
consommez ça,
aquifer and the
voilà ce
surface
qui peut
water.
se passer.
And we told
Donc,
them
ces
about
séances
all
de
the negative
sensibilisation
impacts
ont
that
permis aux gens de
has.
comprendre le danger.
And so once they were able to understand
Les
the
différentes
risk,
structures
the
chargées
danger,
de
the various
sensibilisation
structures
essaient d'amener les gens à respecter les types d'engrais et les dosages.
were
Donc, c'est
able
sur
to
ce
have the
principe
information they
nous,
needed to
comme
help
projet,
control
on travaille.
fertilizer types and dosages.
Et
So
quelque
that's
part, il y
how
a
we
quelle
tried to work
question
on that.
encore?
I'm not sure if there was something else.
Alors, en termes de questions, si je n'ai pas...
Well, in terms of
je pense
questions,
qu'il
I
y a
don't
eu-
think that I have any others.
Je pense que vous en avez répondu
I
à
believe that we've
l'essentiel des
answered
questions.
most of
Avec les difficultés
the
qu'on a eues,
questions
on est
that were
déjà over time.
asked. I know that we had some technical difficulties, but we're still on time.
Insistance peut-être de nos questions qu'on aurait omises. Je vous inviterai donc à passer
If
à
there are
la
any other
prochaine
questions
session de notre réunion.
in the audience,
Session de réflexion pendant à peu près 10 minutes.
we will now have about a 10-minute reflection period, and I would like to hear from other meeting participants. There are 2 questions we would like to ask you all for reflection and hear what you think about them. So you will have a QR code that shows up on your screen. Please use your phone to follow the QR code. You'll scan the code, and that will allow you to access the questions, the reflection questions, and then you'll be able to enter in your answer directly. And then we'll be able to see all of your answers, and they'll be put up onto the screen. Interpreter would like to note that the QR code is not up on the English slides, but it is up on the French slides. So scan the QR code and it should open right up. Just use your phone, scan the QR code, and it will take you right to AHA slides. And you will see the questions pop up. The first question: what are your needs in terms of support, learning, or training to be able to use this approach? The synergy approach that we've been discussing, where several implementers come together around the same goal, protecting ponds, for example, or it could be another kind of natural resource from your personal experience. But what are your needs in terms of support, learning, and training to be able to use this approach?
Donc, normalement, si vous avez scanné le QR code,
so hopefully you have been able to scan the QR code and access AHA slides. So you can put your answer to the question right in and it will pop up. I can see here already. I see Mr. Rabdo has answered with his name. And someone else saying it would be good to have a document that summarizes this experience with collaboration. Yes, I agree. At least a summary document of the basics of this experience with such a collaboration, and maybe some of the difficulties or pitfalls to be avoided in the future. Are there any other answers? And we'll just take 5 minutes to answer this question. Okay, someone else saying more documentation about this approach. Great. So we have 2 answers asking for more documentation. Okay, here's another answer.
Je vois pour l'essentiel, en tout cas, 3 sur 4 de ces réponses demandent une documentation.
3 of them are already asking for more and better documentation. Someone is saying we need more concrete examples that can help us understand these actions, more model cases. Yeah, maybe as we develop documentation that can include some practical examples. Another answer, modeling of the approach to train different departments and NGOs. Yes, if we could model or create a model for this approach, that would also be a part of documentation. And that would help other people, other groups, other departments apply the model as well. Someone is saying that maybe there should be a field visit to the site to meet different actors and beneficiary communities. I think that's a great idea. We also had questions about what the community's perception is of all of these different actors, what their perception is. Or do they just see the whole project as done by one local actor, or do they know what's going on? Other requests for documentation? I think that's really the most common answer we've been getting. Okay, documentation, process documentation. I can see that's what you're identifying as needs. All right, we'll go on to the next question, the second question. What are your recommendations for applying this approach in other communes, other villages and towns, regions, or countries? And I think that some of the answers to the first question have anticipated answers to the second question. Someone is already saying documenting this collaboration approach. Yes, I think it's very clear that we need a lot of good documentation. That would really help other people follow the same approach and follow the same steps, and hopefully avoid any pitfalls. Okay, another recommendation, encourage experience sharing between different actors. Yes. That also is one of the goals of this workshop itself. We are hoping to encourage all of the actors involved to share out their experiences. And we didn't have all the time in the world, but I think it's important to hear other people's experiences and to share your own. Okay, bring actors together to encourage them to follow this approach. Yes, again, I think that's very relevant. Maybe to bring people together at a regional level, at a commune level, at a national level, to talk more about this approach. There are some coordination frameworks that do already exist that could serve to bring together people to discuss this approach. But it's important to keep sharing out experiences and to have as relevant and holistic a view as possible, to see what synergies are possible through collaboration, to have more or better results, a bigger impact, and so on. Another answer has just come in: organize meetings for sharing out results that have been obtained with the authorities at every level. So meetings with authorities to talk about concrete results. I think that that's very important. We had a question about collaborating with government authorities, and of course, the success of our activities depends on such collaboration. These authorities have responsibilities and they can support us. Another answer, yes, making information more available and spreading it. And then also this approach, you should work with technical services to apply this approach at a higher level, at a greater scale. Yes, well, after we've done the documentation work and knowledge sharing, yes, hopefully we can apply these synergies elsewhere. Another answer, analyzing this approach based on scalability criteria and rounding out the analysis with financial information and economic information before it is shared out with the wider public. Yes, we have to look at the economic impact and have good figures on that. I think we all want to know, what is the impact? What will it cost? How much does each partner need to invest? Another answer, it's important to understand the realities on the ground when implementing this approach. Yes, I agree. The reality on the ground can be quite different based on the area you're in and the kind of work you're doing. So maybe we could create a categorization of different on-the-ground realities to help us better target or adapt this approach. There you go. So I think that's been about 5 minutes. You can continue sending us answers to these questions as you'd like. Thank you very much to everyone. Thank you for being here with us today. You have the website and email if you would like any more information. The email, yes, you can write to the email for any more information you'd like. So that's all for the question and answer section. Thank you once again, everyone, on behalf of USAID for being here with us today. Thank you for all of your questions. And thank you as well for your answers to our 2 reflection questions. The next step, the second to last step, is to hear from TerresEauVie and Wadata and the WFP. I don't know if you're here. What do you think about the recommendations and expressions of need that we've heard from the participants? I would like to give the floor now to our panelists. Let's start with TerresEauVie. What are your recommendations? Yes, thank you.
Comme vous avez déjà eu à le dire, c'est réellement très pertinent. Nous ne pouvons remercier que les participants par rapport à ces acquis, du moins par rapport à ces ajouts-là qu'ils ont fait, que nous allons
all of this,
considérer
for all of this
effectivement,
information,
une meilleure capitalisation, une meilleure mise à l'échelle. Donc,
it
on
will really
pourra
help when we start thinking
effectivement
about scalability
améliorer mieux, en tout cas, ce
and
qui a
how we
été fait.
can
Et avec
improve on what we've already done.
les ajouts qui viennent d'être faits, je pense que on se retrouverait avec les partenaires
We
avec
will
lesquels on a
keep
déjà
working
travaillé, on est en train de travailler.
with our partners, the
Pouvoir
people we've been working with, we'll keep
effectivement
working
l'approche,
together
pouvoir proposer en tout cas, je sais pas, un guide, un document quand
with the
même
goal of
qui
creating
pourrait
some kind of
effectivement
document or
servir
guide that
de
other
base
people
de
can then
travail
use
d'autres partenaires.
to implement a similar approach elsewhere. That's what I wanted to add. Thank you.
Au nom de
Yes,
WinRock,
thank you.
de l'activité TerresEauVie, est-ce que
And
le
then
PAM, TerresEauVie,
TerresEauVie, WFP, CRS,
Wadata
Wadata,
aurait quelque chose à rajouter?
does anyone have any last comments to add?
Oui, quelqu'un voudrait ajouter parmi les panélistes?
Yes.
Kamisou,
Do any of the panelists have anything to last word to add? Kamisu? Yes.
En fait, je pense qu'à l'échelle de la TerresEauVie, le retour des
I think
ces discussions, le retour des participants, je
that
pense que nous avons bien
we
noté.
need more
Nous
participant
avons en tout cas apporté
comments.
des réponses. Mais nous avons compris que c'est aussi des points qui pourraient améliorer notre présentation. Donc,
That's something we could flesh out more.
nous avons bien noté.
We've noted that down from one of the questions we received about beneficiary perceptions.
Toutes ces recommandations.
And we'll be taking that into account along with the recommendations.
Nous avons discuté et nous pensons que ça va améliorer notre document de capitalisation.
And we hope that that will allow us to continue improving our work.
Avec un document qui tient en compte, en tout cas, toutes les réponses à ces points. Et dans un bref délai, je pense.
And I think we'll be able to do that relatively soon. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup, Kamisou.
Thank you, Kamisu.
Et je vois bien ici le lien qui vous est donné, si vous pouvez trouver un peu de temps donc, pour répondre donc à ce bref questionnaire-là.
Yes, so I'd like to ask everyone if you have the time to. There's a link that we'll be sending you with a brief survey. Please answer the survey when you have the time. Suzanne, that's right? Yes, that's correct. And we'll send that out to everyone by email after the end of the session. Great. So you have the website here, and we'll send you more information by email, and you can fill out the survey at your ease.
Le plus rapidement possible. Je pense que notre timing de réunion
I think that's all. Thank you to the organizers. Before concluding the session, I would just like to summarize. Our goal here was to hear about the experience of the RISE 2 project in the Sahel region in collaboration with ProWash and Scale and other projects financed by USAID, as well as the World Food Programme. They all worked together to manage ponds with as much synergy as possible in the region of Zander. This unique experience has we've been able to learn many important lessons from it. So hopefully we will be able to make the most of these results and have an even bigger and better impact within our communities. And we will be able to find synergies to save resources and to drive innovation. I think this approach is very relevant for all of our activities. It's everything from capacity strengthening for community committees and structures,
politique nationale en matière de gestion des ressources en eau, il a mis en œuvre également
changing the national water resource management policy.
La mise en synergie de ces deux politiques
These national policies will help us better manage water resources and other natural resources in an integrated fashion to meet not only development goals, but also water security goals and food security goals. By pooling resources, we will be able to reach our goals faster and build our capacity for meeting these goals.
C'est la proposition que TerresEauVie fait pour pouvoir atteindre plus d'objectifs ici. Et comme vous l'avez dit,
believes that this collaborative approach is more effective.
Améliorations à apporter dans le document et surtout de produire donc cette approche à travers un document qui est.
This approach will be documented and shared out between all relevant actors. So that is what I noted down from this workshop and from these presentations. I would just like to thank everyone one last time, USAID, ProWash, everyone, for staying with us for an hour and a half. And I look forward to other opportunities for dialogue. Thank you very much, everyone, and see you very soon.